WWT presents Experts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble. And today we're discussing how the Department of Defense is modernizing its technology infrastructure in the face of change. The DoD must make significant investments in technology infrastructure to effectively leverage artificial intelligence, advanced cybersecurity measures, and cloud adoption. All of these are critical to mission readiness. However, these investments must also take into account, talent shortages, tech debt, cultural shifts, and other operational challenges. We've got two experts from WWT here to talk about that today. First up, Dr. Tim Robinson is a seasoned cybersecurity expert and former U.S. Marine with over 20 years of service. He's currently a Principal Solutions Architect with us here at Worldwide Technology and specializes in developing cutting-edge security solutions for our clients in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. With a doctorate in cybersecurity and a wealth of experience in cyber operations, he's really at the forefront of protecting critical information systems. Also joining us is Chris Morgenstern, a systems engineering manager with Worldwide Technology, who also aligns with our DoD clients. Chris spent 8 years in the U.S. Marine Corps and has over 20 years of technology experience altogether. He specializes in data center storage, compute, virtualization, and advanced infrastructure solutions, and he supports federal special operations and military teams really around the globe. He's got a degree in computer science and really deep expertise in lots of different cutting-edge technologies, and as such, he's really at the forefront of mission-critical IT innovation with our clients and out in the world. Gentlemen, welcome. We got two Marines with us today.
I know. Thanks for having us, man. Yeah, super excited, man. The Marines have landed. Let's go.
Yeah. Excellent.
Let's do it.
Good to see you too, Chris. Thanks for coming. All right. Well, let's jump in. So how does the Department of Defense infrastructure modernization strategy align with its broader goals for digital transformation and delivering those mission outcomes that are super important?
Guess I'll take the first swing, Matt.
Yeah, please.
So the DoD's infrastructure modernization strategy is really about becoming more agile, faster, and smarter as it ties directly into their larger digital transformation goals. So the idea is to integrate cutting-edge technologies like AI, ML, and cloud computing into their existing systems. This will allow for better decision-making, quicker responses to evolving threats. So this is crucial for improving mission readiness because it helps the DoD keep up with the demands of modern warfare, where speed and data-driven insights are everything to mission success.
Hey, Matt, I just want to add a couple things to that. Just to not just echo what Chris said, but think of it slightly different. I think, for us who are focused on DoD 100% of the time, I think it allows us to be able to get there. Chris talked about AI, he talked about ML. All of these newer technologies are helping us as organizations become operationally efficient and operationally ready. But I've done workshops with organizations who have what I would consider technical debt, like old technologies or old software. And I think by us modernizing our infrastructure will allow us to be able to integrate with some of those older things. And I do understand all of us as engineers, we'd like for you to get off the old technical debt stuff and move on to the new stuff. But some of our organizations cannot. But I will say that if you do modernize parts of your infrastructure or some of your infrastructure, it allows you to integrate a little bit more efficiently with those older technologies so that we can make advanced decisions.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned AI, and I know that comes up in conversations about technology all the time today. I'm curious, how is the DoD's approach to infrastructure modernization evolving, because it kind of has to, in the pressure to face adopting technologies like AI, kind of moving more stuff to the cloud, and there's more advanced cybersecurity measures?
Yeah, so with AI, ML, advanced security, cybersecurity like zero trust, cloud computing, these are all the buzzwords of the day. They're not nice to haves anymore. I think that's the way it started with DoD directives coming out saying everybody must go to cloud, I think that people are figuring out that a hybrid cloud model, it's providing a more scalable and flexible environment with computational power that they just couldn't have on site before. So the transition is happening. It's going fast, honestly. It was just a slow drag. I think the DoD is always a little bit behind industry, but they're definitely coming along. And AI, ML, zero trust, hybrid cloud, these are all the things that they have to look at to be more modern and more proactive.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim, I want to come to you with this. I'm curious, on the one hand, the DoD needs to really embrace rapid innovation, but on the other hand, there are very stringent security requirements. So how's the organization finding the balance between those two?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Matt, you're talking security. You're speaking my love language right now.
Man.
I will say from the jump, and you've probably heard me say this ad nauseum, but when you're building infrastructure, when you're modernizing your infrastructure, let's get out of this business of bolting on security at the end. Let's stop slapping a firewall around your technical solution that you just, that the government just paid you good money for to implement, and now you're just going to append security on the end. I would love to see the planners get together and start baking security in from the jump, right? I go back to what I said earlier about the technical debt. There are a boatload of security technologies that are in our architecture that simply needs to go away, right? Or if they can't go away, we need to bolster them with secondary security measures in order to kind of reduce that attack surface that's out there. I think for us to do that is you have to leverage current technology. I'm going to throw out a buzz term. That's the whole reason for commercial solutions for classified. Basically, that's how do you leverage commercial off-the-shelf solutions to be able to speak in a secure fashion. Similar to this mindset, when we start building out and modernizing our infrastructure, we need to look commercially to see what's happening. You can also partner with industry professionals like myself or more likely Chris. You can partner with us to be able to, let's take a look at what we currently have in terms of security architecture, and let's kind of lean forward to the future, because there are things that we have to abide by. Chris brought this up earlier. He brought up the term zero trust. Like it or not, it's coming. And we have to plan for it. And we have to be able to technically solution to provide the solutions that needs to be baked in with zero trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the key is embedding security into every step of the process from the get-go. It's about making security a built-in feature, not an afterthought. And from my days back when I was in uniform, it was very much an afterthought. There'd be some sort of AVA or something that came out that we'd have to lock things down for, but it was after a breach had happened. Today's world, we cannot wait and be vulnerable. We have to be proactive.
I got one save round. Sorry, Matt. In the Marine Corps, we call it save round. And after the boss gets finished saying what he wants to say, if you got something to say, you call it save round. So this is a save round. I would say let's not be afraid of leveraging the new, more innovative type of solutions. For example, like automation. A lot of organizations are stuck. It's like analysis by paralysis. We know we have to do automation. Kind of scared. We don't know what we need to do. But I think you need to start embracing not only just security, but security through some of these new technological, innovative things that are out there to be able to move forward.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I want to come back at you with a question here too, though. Like we're advising the Department of Defense to have that security mindset from the start. Is that happening, or is that stuff that they need to evolve to still?
I think it is happening. I will tell you, the very first question I get when I walk into an organization for a workshop, whether it's an ideation session, whether it's networking, whether it's some other type of their architecture, they say, hey, Dr. Robinson, we've just bought this new stuff. We're trying to figure out how to incorporate it inside of our infrastructure, how to best go about doing that, and how to best plan for these other things that we have. So I do think a lot of our organizations are laser focused on security. I'll tell you, the worst call I could possibly get is, hey, Dr. Robinson, I've been breached. What should I do? I love getting the other conversations. Hey, Dr. Robinson, what can we do now to fortify our architectures for the future?
Mm-hmm. Matt, if you haven't heard Tim's 4 pillars of cybersecurity and zero trust brief, it is by far one of the best out there. We've had him do that for our co-coms team a few times now. Hands down, like he He's got it, and he totally captivates the audience. Really gets their attention.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll pay you afterwards.
Nicely done. Yeah. And actually, we've got another episode in this series with Tim where we talk all about security. So encourage you to check that out. Okay. So, as I think about the infrastructure modernization that the DoD is doing, and that supports the digital transformation and those mission outcomes, some of that takes thoughtful data strategy and thoughtful governance. So how do those factor into the conversations you're having and what you see out in the market?
I'll take this one. I will say if I walk into organizations and we start talking data, if you can't point to your data strategy or other governance, which basically tells you what to do with your data, we go back to foundational principles, right? Mm-hmm. Because when I think we said this on one of our many other podcasts, but garbage data in, garbage data out. We are so focused on gathering the right types of data at the right time because you have warfighters that are pushed out forward that are ready and willing to leverage this data. But if the data that's coming in is not organized right, it's not filtered right, if there are duplicates in there, if the data is skewed, man, it's very hard to be able to put people's lives in your hands and leveraging this data that's not accurate. So we do a great job at starting from foundational level. If you don't have a data governance strategy, you're not alone. We're here to help, right? That's what we do. We start from ground zero. What's your data look like? Is it tagged? Where is it stored? Where is it located? Another one of my pet peeves, Matt, and I know I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit here, is I'll ask this one critical question in one of the pillars that Chris was talking about. Hey, do you have a backup strategy? Yes, sir. We bought this backup solution. Okay, so have you ever recovered from a backup? No. I'm like, so then how do you know that it works? Mm-hmm. Well, sir, we really don't know that it works. So going back to, hey, we're laying a foundation about what data we're bringing in, how we're tracking and locating this data and storing this data. We're also talking about how to recover from this data and recover from it the first time. Not, again, the first time you recovering your data and restoring from a backup shouldn't be the first time you got breached. Then we have real problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of piggy just a little bit on that, because I don't have much. Tim killed it. But I think the most important thing that he touched on, that it has to be coherent. You can collect all the data in the world, but if you don't know what to do with it and you don't understand it, then it's not going to help you in mission critical scenarios. So hands down, making it coherent is one of the most important things.
Yeah. All right. Well, my next question to you is, I know that we're talking about infrastructure modernization, but part of that involves paying down tech debt. And I'm curious your point of view is, can you do both of those at the same time? Or do you have to kind of pay attention to modernization over here and kind of do tech debt over there? How do those come together?
So to answer your question, Matt, I think that, the DoD can ensure that it's paying down its technical debt while modernizing and keeping in mind data governance. The DoD has to take a strategic phased approach rather than trying to modernize everything at once. This may have something to do with the budget they have to work with, which is always shrinking. And a big part of this is data center consolidation, which helps phase out legacy systems and focus more on flexible, scalable technologies like cloud computing. In addition to this, adopting modern practices like DevSecOps and DevOps, which help streamline operations, automate processes, and continue improvement. These practices allow the DoD to move faster and accumulate even more technical debt, or avoid from accumulating even more technical debt as they introduce new technologies. So that's, to me, one of the biggest things is, automation, streamlining processes, that as you upgrade systems and go into new technologies, making sure, as we mentioned already before, that the data is usable, but also that you're storing it in an efficient manner, you're computing it in an efficient manner. A lot of that comes from cloud computing, hybrid cloud computing, and automation.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, I just want to add one thing. I've seen people get themselves in trouble when they want to, we're modernizing our infrastructure. We want to throw this new hotness on the network, and you haven't fully tested it and vetted it before you push it to production. right?
Yeah.
That is not good, right? So we do things that worldwide. We got a cyber lab. We also do lab as a service for some organizations who are modernizing their infrastructure. They can come here first. Let's take a look at how this will function in the real world. So it's kind of the VVNA: verify, validate, and accredit, right? So I want to verify that this thing does what it says it's supposed to do. I want to validate that this thing that does what it says it's supposed to do it in reality with real live data, and accredit. We want to accredit that everything is functioning fine, that we're hitting all the stags, that we're not releasing ports or leaving ports open that are supposed to be open. The bottom line is we want to go through that entire risk management framework, if you will, to make sure things are ready before we release it into production.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I want to ask one more question about this. So I'm curious if you think it's better to have a mindset of like, wow, we have some tech debt we need to figure out, and so we're going to modernize, or is it better to think like, we need to modernize the infrastructure, and while we do that, we're going to pay down some tech debt? See the nuance there? Two things? Go ahead.
Two things, man. I keep going back. You guys will get this. If you haven't got it now, you know that I tell stories. You see the points across.
Tell it.
So I was doing a workshop with one of our customers, I'll say, and I'll call him Joe, right? So Joe wrote this program like in the 80s, right? And this program I think was written in COBOL. It could have been Fortran, but now I'm really dating myself.
That's old school, man.
I'm taking a COBOL class,
right?
So it was written in COBOL, right? So do you keep the program around? Well, it's a very critical solution. Or do you kind of sunset it, right? Do you let it go out the pasture and you develop something else where it may be more cost effective to keep that program around, and then focus on those new innovative technologies that can interface with this old technology. So that's how I see paying down technical debt, because if you have to recode this thing, it's going to cost you a lot more than just thinking about it as you're planning when you're going through your infrastructure upgrade. Let's buy something, or let's put something online that will actually interface with this COBOL program that Joe built 30 years ago that's still at the forefront of what we're doing for our nation.
Yeah. Well, Tim, my name is Matthew Coble. When I was a kid, people would ask me like, "Oh, does your family invent COBOL?" I'm like, "No, it's spelled differently." But
I was wondering if you was going to pick that up. You get an A.
It's always fun to hear. Always fun to hear those old names of COBOL, Fortran, and stuff like that. And surprisingly, some of that's still around.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Yours is more fitting than mine. I get Rhoda Morgenstern all the time. I'm like, no, I don't know Rhoda. She's not related. She's a TV character.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
I love it. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about how the DoD can address things like skill gaps, cultural transitions, and the various workforce challenges that are out there. And I want to ask too about like how y'all feel that DOGE and the work that's going on there may affect that. And I'm not trying to be political about it, but just that's part of that cultural transition I think we're seeing in the market today too, right?
So I got my personal feelings about this, my professional feelings about this, but I think they kind of coincide. And I promise to keep myself out of trouble on this one. I think you just have to invest in the right things. And one of those is education and training. We can't be cheap when it comes to training the workforce that's supposed to keep our nation safe. We can't cut corners with regards to training. Myself and Ricky Boyd, we go around and we do a bunch of workshops on one of our partner. We'll just call it what it is. It's a Cisco ICE workshop. We go across the country and we train folks on how to leverage this technology. And customers, they love it. They come back, hey, can we get some more of that? Because they know it's value add. So as I'm running my organization in the government, you can't cheap out on training. Number two, you need to be able to, and this is where I get myself in trouble. You have to be able to hire and retain top talent, and that costs money as well, right? So, and it's, you mentioned DOGE, you started it. I didn't start this, Matt, but you started it. So you have to have a budget to retain that top talent, because in the military, let's face it, a lot of our people rotate in and they rotate out. And when they rotate in, we'll train them. They get very proficient at doing the right thing on the network. Then, unfortunately, we lose them 3 years later. Right. So then we need to change our strategy and how we do things with our governmental workers, the folks who stay there, for 15 years. We need to be able to retain those guys, and we need to be able to compensate them accordingly. I'm sorry I had to go there.
No,
I'll give it to you, Chris.
That's my number one point as well. You got to pay them. when I was in the Marine Corps, my first duty station, I spent a couple of years in. I was more or less an IT administrator for a helicopter squadron. Took care of Windows Server and Exchange 5.5 and fixed mouse problems, or printer problems. And so I knew after my first 4 years, I didn't have what I thought I needed to have to get out and have a career in IT. I had never joined thinking I was going to spend my life in the Marine Corps. So I re-enlisted. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll spend my life in the Marine Corps. But then I went to the Marine Corps NOC, what was called the MIT-NOC at the time. I had a captain there. He was very big on training. It was right at the time that the program NMCI came out, and the Marine Corps, were trying to stay out of it. So he was very engaging, very polarizing, and I got trained. I got my MCSE in Windows Server 2000, 2003. I had my NetApp NCDA. I had my VMware VCP. And by the time that second 4 years was over, I kind of knew what my worth was, and it was a lot better than where it started. Now, you get really talented and skilled people in the military in uniform. And as Tim said, either they rotate out after 3 years, and then you got to find someone new to do the job, likely someone less senior. Or, they get out and they become a contractor or go into the public sector somewhere else, and you can't keep them around. So for the DoD in itself, at least for the men and women in uniform, maybe there needs to be a compensation for salary gap or something like that. I mean, there's a cost of living allowance. There's a hazardous duty pay. There's all these extra pays. There's re-enlistment bonuses, which are nice, but I don't think that they really take people through the long term to keep the skilled folks in. So maybe there needs to be another method to compensate them on a monthly basis to bring them up closer to what the contractors are making. Mm-hmm. And then to further another point that Tim made, these contractors, they're on site at whatever unit, and their SI won the bid for this 3 years or whatever. But during that time, they find out they got a budget cut, and they got to try and retain all this top talent. And then the next repeat comes out, and they're trying to figure out how to win again, but at a lower cost. The only way to do that is to get rid of your best people because they're making the most money. So you find that, not only does the military rotate every 3 years, but contractors rotate every 2 to 3 years just to get a pay raise. Yeah. Because their contract is expiring and, the new contract isn't offering anything. So putting the money where it's important, keeping those skills gaps closed as much as possible. Obviously training is huge. But if you can't keep the people around because they're trying to pay their bills, then, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you both sharing your opinions on that. I want to kind of ask one more question about it. You both spent, many years in the United States Marine Corps. I know it's been a minute, but is it the case that the cultural vibe in the Marine Corps is like pro-technology and I'm excited to learn, I'm excited to be innovative? And I mean that at both sort of the mid levels and the senior levels too, or is it more kind of reluctance around innovation? What's the feel?
Yeah. Now you're getting me in trouble. So I think I honestly think I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off real quick. So that's why I got out of the Marine Corps, right? So it kind of, I'm just saying, just from my experience, like on the officer side, it's slightly different. I was able to deploy under U.S. Cybercom as a CNO, Computer Network Operations Planner. So I was able to do some very cool stuff. But the more rank that I got, the farther I kept getting pushed away from the keyboard. So that was a long time ago. Now, I'm not going to tell you when I retired from the Marine Corps, but it was over a decade ago. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that. But I think there is a cultural shift. And I will be honest with you, like yesterday, my daughter was prepping for a program at Virginia Tech, and she was writing her essay, and she talked about, hey, I want to join the Corps cadets at Virginia Tech because I want to be able to build those military skills. So when I go into the military, I was floored. I had no idea that you wanted to go in the military. She was like, yeah, they trained you. And I will get out of the military in 4 to 6 years with those transferable skills to be able to join the workforce, just like Chris Morgenstern just said. So I definitely think there's a shift from when, we old dogs, Chris and I, when we were in the Marine Corps, and I welcome it all. I totally welcome it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been a number of years since I supported the Marine Corps team. That's actually how I started at Worldwide. I was a systems engineer for the Marine Corps team. Always still focused in the same areas that I am now. But I'd say it was a mixed bag. You got some guys that really care. They really want to get out there and learn as much as they can, not just so they can pad a resume and get out, but they truly enjoy the technology. And then you got the other guys that just don't care. And, like I said, it's been a while since I've supported the Marine Corps directly. And I would say the bulk of the folks that I had close contact with over the years were excellent people, hardworking, loved IT and were great at it. And honestly, I think some of the smartest people I've ever met came out of the Marine Corps. So absolutely, innovation and figuring out. The one thing the Marine Corps has always done is more with less. They get the leftover money and the leftover everything. And so my experience has shown that even with a reduced budget for pretty much everything across the board, except for maybe bullets, they're finding a way to get the job done, and they're being innovative and creative and making things work. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as a civilian, and admittedly biased because I work at a company called Worldwide Technology, I'm optimistic and also kind of generally have the sense that, our military does lean into technology, does lean into innovation. I think it's an important thing to do. And I'm curious, I know that you all are coming at it from your own backgrounds, but now working here, have visibility across all of our armed forces. I'm curious if you see similar patterns of approaches to infrastructure modernization in all the branches of the military, or are there differences going on in different branches? And if so, what can they learn from one another?
I'll take this one first, Chris, if you don't mind. I think for me, Matt, to be honest, I think it's a lot of it's a pull. There's a demand signal. For example, we talked about zero trust earlier. There's also another buzz term. It's comply to connect, right? These initiatives, while they're great, they're formed well, they're put together such that organizations know exactly what to do and when to do them. I think just by being able to go through these programs, right, by this being levied upon DoD entities, they have to modernize their infrastructure. Because some things, for example, like SOAR, you're going to have to understand how to implement SOAR and purchase SOAR and integrate it into your network. And unfortunately, you can't do it with old servers, right? And some things with this whole idea of going to the cloud, some things we're pushing over to the cloud. So we're going to have to understand how to do that as well. So you're going to have to modernize that part of your infrastructure to be able to push things to the cloud and bring things out of the cloud. So I think it's a demand signal that's pushed by hire, that's forcing all of the services to upgrade and upgrade their infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, so the Air Force is kind of focused on integrating AI for predictive maintenance and mission planning. The Army is prioritizing mobility, making sure its infrastructure can operate effectively. And then the Navy, on the other hand, it's about securing real-time communication across dispersed assets. So yes, there's absolutely differences in maybe what they're approaching, at least from the kickoff. But they're all common threads, right? Cloud adoption, cybersecurity, automation. Those are top of mind for all the branches. So, I think they can all learn from each other. Sharing best practices. I think that when it comes to joint environments, they do it probably the best. But any kind of cross-branch collaboration on frameworks or scalability. All these things help, the DoD improve and modernize.
Yeah. All right. Well, last question for each of you here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm curious if you see successful examples of infrastructure modernization that are going on in the DoD, and what do you see that success as being, and what are the key lessons that we should learn from that?
I guess I can go first. One of the the big things, and you know, what's success for one is maybe not for another, but the Army 365 program. So what that's done is that's taken away, you know, managing a complex Microsoft Exchange environment across the world, you know, in some small units, some large units, base post stations, however it used to be managed. It's all been kind of pulled away, and now it's much like we deal with Microsoft 365. We log in and we get our email. It doesn't matter where we are. So to me, that's huge. You're cutting down on infrastructure that is really hard to maintain you know, the skills in. Exchange was not an easy thing when I learned it, and I mean, it might be a little bit better now, but to have to run that, maintain that, and have skilled folks to operate it, it was a lot. And to put that out and be more of a cloud-based program, I think it's been extremely successful. And it's also, you know, it's reduced the amount of shared file data storage that everybody's got to have, because everybody's got a little bit of space, and that data follows them around. It's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
I think another great example of it, and I think this qualifies. I think the Navy Engine program, I think it's SMIT. I forget what that's called. Again, it's going to have to check my work. But what they're doing with Engine is they're basically looking at technologies, incorporating it, testing it before they go live. So I think if organizations, you know, we're talking Marines, you know, Air Force and Navy, not Navy, but Air Force and Army, if they look at what Navy is doing with Engine, right, in terms of, hey, let's figure out how to get this technology, let's figure out how to incorporate this technology, test it, feed it, and then push to production, I think they'd be much better off. Not saying that other organizations don't have what Engine is having, but what they are doing is pretty innovative. I think a lot can be learned from what the Navy is doing with that program.
Yeah, I think the Air Force Kessel Run program would be a similar concept.
Got you. That's a good point.
Cool.
So I could be wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay.
No, these are good thoughts. Well, Tim, Chris, thanks so much for sharing your insights and your candor today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And thank you for joining us as well. Another great episode of WWT Experts. And one in a series, we have conversations around the Department of Defense and how it's embracing different technology solution areas. That and much, much more is out on WWT.com. We've got all kinds of video content you can watch anytime on demand, calendar of stuff that's coming up for you to check out when it drops. So we hope you'll do that. And we always love hearing your feedback. So if you get the survey, send that back our way, or just drop us an email and let us know how we did today. And we'd love to serve you better. Thank you for coming today. We'll see you next time.